Today we're going to talk about how I ended up in police custody for 3 days in a business setting. And it's an interesting topic because once in a while, business people are always worried of, you, I'm going to get arrested. Or how did you end up being arrested in a business setting? So that's the story I'm going to tell today. And this is going to be my personal experience because, again, you know, in business, we face different challenges, we face different, and we have different encounters, but those encounters are actually what defines a business person. So here's what happens. And this was early 2022, early 2022. And it was just after, you know, a long investment that I had made. And by the way, this is one of the mistakes that most people make, most young entrepreneurs make. I was running my company so well. I had, you know, a few things running here and there. And then another big deal, big idea came on board. Another big project came on board, a business idea actually. So I decided to divert from my main business to invest in the new idea that came on board. We started the new idea in the late 2022, which rolled all the way to early 2023. So that was around April 2023. So this is what happened. I had spent a lot of money in the new project, and then I had even forgotten about my business because the new project was actually promising. The new project was you know, promising to be, you know, a big deal. And I even felt like, you know, my company was worthless. It was giving me lesser money compared to the new project, which had not even started giving me money just yet. So come to March 2023. The project failed, of course, and then, you know, I'm back on board, back in town. Things are not working, no project, no nothing, no money, no business, no clients are coming. Remember, I lost my employees, I lost my company, I lost like everything, finances and everything. So I was literally starting from scratch. In fact, I had moved from a 2-bedroom apartment to a bedsitter. It was that bad. I wouldn't even afford my own lifestyle. I wouldn't even afford talk time and data for myself. It was that bad. So comes, I think, late March, I was just somewhere in the house, and then one of these old friends of mine called. This is a guy I had met somewhere in Mombasa. Yeah, not a close friend per se, but he was a friend to a friend of mine. He was, I can say, we had a mutual friend, right? So he calls and he's like, hey, Shamma, I need your services. There's this work you did in Mombasa, and I really need you to come on board because I can't find the materials. I can't do the project because I can't find the materials and the right suppliers. And being that you did it sometimes back and you did it perfectly, I need you to come on board and just help my situation. Well, at that moment, well, he was God sent. I had no money. I had no nothing. So someone just calling you from nowhere that he want to give you a project. You don't have money. You don't have nothing. You're just waiting for God to open ways. Well, that was God sent. So without thinking twice, I got into it. So he gave me details of the project. He gave me details of the work that was supposed to be done. And in fact, what he wanted done was, you know, a project that needed materials to be imported from China. The materials were not locally available. So we were supposed to do an importation from China before we can do the work. So I tell him, hey, you know what, send me the details, which he does, by the way. And things went really fast. Within 2 days, we had finalized on everything, measurements, payments, and actually send him the quotation. He approves the quotation and makes the first payment. Just to make you understand, well, the quotation was actually totaling to around 110,000. The total quotation, 110,000. So out of the 110,000, I of course needed a deposit, which was 50% of the total. That was 55,000. So the guy proceeds and makes the first deposit of 55,000. Good business. So there are important things I need to let you know. The first one is that the project that was done in Mombasa was not actually my project, though I was part of it, right? It's my brother who did the project, but I was just part of the project. So I was safe. I was like, well, you need the items imported from China. I got you covered. Why? Because I have someone who is actually going to do it, right? My brother's right here. He's going to do the importation. And so I was really peaceful as far as that is concerned. So, well, fast forward, he makes the payment. And the first thing I do is call my brother. I'm like, hey, bro, I got this project here. I need your help. And my brother was more than just willing to help, which, well, we go deep into it. he proceeds to contact the suppliers in China. The suppliers send him the quotation. He shares with me the quotation, and the total amount we needed to execute the whole plan was about 47,000 Kenyan shilling. So, well, if we only needed for 7,000, and I had charged an upwards of 110,000, we're on safe hands. Things were supposed to move just perfectly well. So we get down into it. The first thing I do is, after approving the quotation and the designs and the measurements and everything was just perfect, I sent my brother the first chunk of money, which I sent him a total of around 49,000. Yeah, it was 49,000 if I can remember it well. I sent him 49,000. So he's like, well, immediately we place an order. We need to wait for around 7 days. That is now my brother. We have to wait for 7 days before the items can be prepared and sent back to Kenya. So 7 days was the total turnaround time. That is the time we need to have the items prepared in China and shipped to Kenya. We needed a total of 7 days. So I called back my client and I'm like, yo, we've already placed an order and we need a total of 7 days. And in fact, the client was lenient enough. He was good enough to tell me that, well, I don't need to worry about the 7 days. I can give him an upwards of 14 days. He's more than just willing to wait. Remember, this is an interior designer. He also got a client, so it's not his house that was being done. He has a client who actually contracted him, and then for him, he subcontracted me to do the work. So there are almost 4 parties in the deal. There's the real client, there's the contractor, there is Shamma here, who is a subcontractor, and then there is Shamma's brother, who is a guy who knows a guy, right? So we have like 4 parties here who are taking part in the whole deal. Well, this is a lesson I need everyone to learn, that in business, always try as much as you can to eliminate intermediaries, to eliminate brokers or, a guy who knows a guy, because that is always the beginning of a downfall in any transaction, because that's exactly what happened here. So I send my brother the money. He does the process, and then exactly 2 days later, he calls me back and he's like, hey bro, I've done the process, I've actually made the payments, but we have a problem. The problem here is the quotation I sent was not inclusive of the shipment fee. And I'm like, okay, so how much is the shipment fee? It's like, the shipment fee is gonna cost an upwards of 15,000 Kenyan shillings. I'm like, okay. I already told my client, I already did my quotation, I have a budget for my quotation, so I'm not willing to go deep into the quotation and pick up another 15,000 just for the logistics. So what did I do? I called my client back and I'm like, yo, we have a problem. The budget I had for the transport, I think it's going up. Reason being, I had budgeted for around 15,000, but I'm told it's doubling. So the total is going to go to around, actually it's tripling. So I told him it's tripling. So the total is coming to 45,000. So I need an additional 30,000. The guy was one of the best clients you'll ever meet out here. He was one of the best people you can ever work with. I mean, the guy was like, just give me a few minutes, I'm going to get back to you. And in less than an hour's time, he was back to me. And he was like, I'm going to top you up 30,000 in a few. And an hour later, he sends me an additional 30,000. Well, I'm in business. I only needed 15,000. So I take 15,000, send it to my brother. I keep the remaining 15,000. So in total, I have 15,000 plus 7,000. Because remember, he sent me, actually sent me 56,000, not 55. So I have a reminder of, I have a balance of 7,000 from the initial amount. And then on the second payment, I have a balance of around 15,000. So it's very important to note. The total comes to 21,000. 22, is it 22, 21? Around, thereabout, you can do the math. So I have this money here, my brother is over there processing the whole shipment stuff. That was the last time I actually talked to my brother. So we were all waiting. I mean, I was told to wait for 7 days, so I'm patiently waiting. I know that in the next 7 days, we'll have the package in Nairobi so that it can be delivered in Mombasa. And here's the point. The client was not in a hurry. He said we can take as much time as we can, capped at 14 days, so that wasn't a worry. But on my brother's side, I made him aware that the client is waiting for the package after exactly 7 days, which he was very, very much aware about. Well, fast forward, 7 days elapses, And then that was the very first time I think of calling my brother and just following up. You told me after 7 days I'll be having the package. And it's the very first time that my brother don't pick up my call. So it's 7 days. He promised he's going to deliver the product. He's not picking the call. And now things are starting to get thick. Well, there's no pressure from the client just yet because, I told him to wait for an upwards of 14 days, so he's cool. But on my side, I'm starting to see some red flags. I mean, we were supposed to have the package within 7 days. Why is it taking longer? Why are you not picking up my call? So just to surprise you, my brother didn't pick up my call for another 14 days. Not returning to my calls, not answering my messages, replying to my messages, not answering calls, no, nothing. But, well, at that point, I still had nothing to worry about because after all, he's my brother, he's my blood brother, leave alone the business, he's my blood brother. So I had nothing much really, nothing serious to worry about. Things started getting thick from the client's side when the 14 days elapsed. This guy is not picking calls, he's not returning to the calls, he's not answering messages. Well, it's getting more interesting and more thick. So I started buzzing his phones back and forth. I was like calling him back to back because now I'm having this pressure. I need to sort out the whole mess. Things are not working. I'm right here. Remember, I'm broke. I have no money. I have no business. I've been out of business for nearly a year. So I have no reserve. I have no saving. I have no nothing. In fact, this is my very first project after a very long time. And it's coming from a friend. It's a referral. It wasn't sounding so right. Because again, this is a client. They need respect. They have to be handled diligently. You have to keep your word when you're actually dealing with clients. If I tell you that my brother responded back to me after 1 month, after the 14 days and, 3 weeks and 4 weeks later, I think I'll be lying to you because he never got back to me. He never returned to any of my calls. He never called me back. So at this point, I was like, I'm in the middle of a mess. I don't know the supplier. Remember, that is the first lesson I told you when I was starting. The number one, I'm working with with a broker, I can say. I don't have a direct link with the suppliers. I do not know where the payments were made. I do not have any addresses or contact details of where the package is coming from in China. I'm just blank, right? So, well, fast forward a week, 3 weeks later, my brother reaches back to me. He calls me actually, and he's like, hey, bro, I'm sorry about these. Things didn't go as expected. I made the payments, but there was some sort of a confusion. And then he sends me some bank slip. Well, at that point, I had not done any international fund transfer. I had not done importation just yet, so I was green. I didn't know nothing about anything. I didn't know how the finances are supposed to be transferred or anything. So he sends me a bank slip and he's like, yo, I made these payments. This is when I made the payments and this is how it's supposed to go. So just be patient for the package to be delivered. So at this point, being that I got hold of him, I really insisted that he should give me the contacts of the suppliers. I was like, just give me the contacts of the suppliers. And thank God, he was more than willing to give me the contacts. And that's when I got the contacts of a lady called Katarina in China. I know she's going to watch this. She's a good friend of mine now. And it's for the very first time that I pick my call and call her on WhatsApp. And I'm like, yo, I introduce myself, of course. I'm like, I work with so-and-so, and there is this business that we're transacting. There's this packet that is supposed to be delivered in Nairobi, Kenya, and it's delaying. Can you give me, can you help me track the package and how far it has gone and all those all the processes? And I remember the lady went silent on phone for a little while. And then she was like, Shamma, I understand. We did everything. The quotations were sent, the schedules were sent, everything, the measurements is perfectly okay. The only problem you're having is that the payments were not made. Well, that's when I came, I didn't have anything to respond because number one, I have bank slips showing that payments were actually made. That is number one. Number two, I have a client that has been waiting for more than 14 days, actually 21 days by now. No response, no nothing, no positive feedback. And then now I'm being told that no payment has been made yet. And, if we have to make payments, we have to wait for another 7 days. That means we are already inconveniencing the client. We are already inconveniencing the client that gave us the project. Well, at this point, I was not just thinking straight. I called my brother again. He never picked my call for another 7 days. No returning calls, No sending me messages, no doing nothing about it. And he was just very, very comfortable about it. Well, I'm aware I had pressures. There were pressures and the back and forth from the clients. But again, I had nothing much to worry about because you know what? He's my brother. He's my blood brother, for God's sake. So I had, nothing much to worry about. So at this point, I was left with a few options because immediately I talked to Katharina in China, my brother stopped picking my calls, right? So I had only one option left, or rather two options. The first option is I have to top up the money, pay for the package afresh for it to be delivered. But there was a problem. I didn't have the money. As I said, I was broke, in a bedsitter, no money, no clients, no project, no employee, no nothing, all right? The second option was to initiate a refund the client back the money. But here again, there's a problem. My brother is right here. He's having the other chunk of the money, which I was not sure if he was willing to actually refund the money. Myself, I had a balance. Remember, I was sent cash twice. I had a balance of around 7,000 on the first transaction and another balance of 15,000 on the second transaction, which I had already used. I didn't have the money to refund it. That's where we had the problem, right? So at this point, the client was already impatient. Things were really not working out for him. He was not listening to me. He was not even willing to give me a listening ear or even an allowance of a single day. He was like, you know what? The next thing I'm going to do is sue you. The next thing I'm going to do is get you arrested as soon as I can. So you better either refund me the money or have the package delivered. Well, at this point, I was like, let whatever come because I don't have both the money. I cannot do a refund. And I'm not promising to have the package delivered on time as everything was actually promised. Well, it sounds delusional. It sounds as if it can't happen. But again, as I said, as I started from the beginning, this is a blood brother. This is a client who is actually a friend, someone I've met before, but we did exchange numbers. So he was just given a number by our mutual friend. So there is family involved. There is friendship involved, your personal relationship with your friend, you understand? And then there is business. How you handle that, again, it becomes a bit tricky, all right? That is the second lesson. Sometimes when you're handling business, try as much as you can to do away with family and friends, all right? Well, if it must happen, then please have it written down on paper. Just pen and paper, write it down, have a contract or anything so that you understand the parameters, the boundaries of your transaction and, the consequences of each and every action. So, well, fast forward, the project stalled for like 2 months. My brother never got back to me, never refunded the money. I didn't have the money to pay. The client was patient. Of course, there are those phone calls back and forth every single day, messages, which I never used to actually reply anyway. So the project stalls all the way from March all the way to mid-June. Yeah, those are like around 3 months. Yeah, the client was very patient, by the way. Myself, I can't do such. I can't be patient for that long. So the client was very patient, around 3 months. So mid-June, the client calls me and is like, hi, Shamma, I think at this point, I just need a refund. But now there's a problem. My client, now the contractor's client, had actually sued him, sued him at Nyali police station in Mombasa. And the client was was asking for a refund, but not the amount he paid, actually double the amount he actually paid, all right? Well, they had their own quotation, which I'm not sure of the total amount, but the client paid 115,000 to him. So the client actually demanded for 230,000 a refund from him. The guy came to me and he was like, hey, Shamma, I think you are going to carry the cross. I gave you the money, you delayed the project, it's not my fault, it's all your fault. The client wants a refund. He doesn't want the work done anymore. He just wants the refund, but now it's double. We've wasted his time, we've wasted his resources and everything around it. So what we need is you must refund the money double. I took the screenshot of the conversation, shared with my brother, but again, as usual, he never got back. But this time around, 2 days later, he reads the conversation and then gets back to me. And he's like, hey bro, I think this is not just working. I made the payments, I'm making losses in it, but listen, so that I don't get you in a mess with your client, I'm gonna refund you the money. This is where it gets interesting. My brother says he's ready to refund me the money. Remember, to him, I paid him 49,000 and 15,000, which makes it 64,000. So he's willing to refund back 64,000. The client on the other side needs a total refund, which should be double actually. The client paid me 56,000 plus 30,000, which is coming to around 80, is it around 86,000, correct. So he's demanding for 86,000 times 2, which is about 175,000 thereabout. You can do your quick math. So he needs double the amount. On my side, I don't even have the money to refund half of it, because remember, I had already spent part of the money. So a day later, my brother sends me the money. He sends me a total of 65,000, not 60. I gave him 64, but he sends me 65,000. And now I'm having this 65,000 on my phone. I'm taking my phone and looking at it. Yo, you've sent me 65,000. How do I go about it? I call my client and I'm like, I need to refund you the money. And right now, as you're speaking, I only got 65,000, which I'm willing to send you like right away. And then the rest, we're going to talk about it. At this point, the client is like, no, I'm not taking 65,000. I need double the amount because I've already been sued and I have to pay. And I'm just about to be arrested by the police because they gave me a window period of around 2 weeks to have the amount sorted. So I'm like, well, I have the money. Should I send you or I should not send you? And the guy tells me, don't send me the money because I don't need it. I need money in full, double the money actually. And I'm like, well, at this moment, I need to figure out what to do. So I get home in my house and start thinking, what exactly am I supposed to do? Where exactly, should I get the additional amount? Because my brother already sent me the money and he's not willing to send double the money. Actually, in fact, after sending me the money, he went silent. He no longer picked my call again or gotten back to my messages ever again. It was that crazy. So after talking to the client and him telling me that he doesn't want the money in half, he needs it in full, and the full I'm talking about is actually double the amount of money he paid, I was like, well, at this moment, I rest my case. I have nothing else to do. I keep the money on my phone, and then I proceed with my life as usual. One day later, I think the next day, I sit down with the phone. Again, I look at my balance. I'll be like, I got a balance of about 65,000. I don't have any other money. This is the only money. And then I'm like, well, it's always said that if the money you have cannot solve your problems, then what do? You eat that money. That's exactly what I decided to do. So I take the money. I remember I withdrew 1,000 bob. I went to the nearest liquor store. I bought around 4 cans of beer, and I'm like, this is the first treat that I'm giving myself because everyone doesn't need the money. Of course, I had cost the mess myself, but they don't need the money, and I don't have more money to actually top up. All right, I don't have the money to top up on what actually they need. So I was like, well, for the very first time, I took 1,000 bob. So the 65,000 came to 64,000 because I already spent 1,000 bob. So drunkards in the room will always confirm to you. The first can of Tusker gives you more of a headache, right? Am I making sense? First can. The second can clears the headache. It's an antidote. The first can gives you headache. The second one clears the headache. The third one makes you more optimistic. You start seeing opportunities. You start seeing business ideas. The fourth one actually gives you the ability to work on it without resources or anything. You see yourself flying. You see yourself, running the empires, doing the business. And that's the same position I was in at that moment. So by the time I cleared the 4 cans of Tuskers, I started watching the motivational speakers on YouTube. And they were like, okay, of course, before starting watching the videos, I was like, what can I do to 64,000 to actually give me double the amount, right? I'm not a betting fan. I can't gamble, of course. I can't do it. I've never done it. So I'm not a betting fan. Well, Forex, I can't do it. I've never done it before. So that was out. I was like, well, so it's for the very first time that it actually hit me that I was a business person. That barely 12 months ago, I was actually a business person, that I was actually running business, that I was having clients and employees and an office and all these stuff set up for me, right? It's for the very first time, thanks to the fourth can of Tusker, that I remembered that I was a business person. So I know someone will be gazing what I decided to do with the balance, what I decided to do with the remaining 64,000. But you know what I did? The next morning I woke up, I was like, I'm going to town. I'm going to get an office. I know someone will say it's not a bad idea because, again, I have no option. I know I'm a business person and I need a way of multiplying this money. So the first thing I thought of was I need to go to town, Nairobi, CBD, get a nice office for myself, and boom, I'll be in business. Well, I know that doesn't make sense to most business people. I mean, you can't have an office without clients. But I think that's what the fourth can of Tusker did to me. I was like, well, let me have an office. I'm going to worry about the clients later after I have an office. Because again, as I said, if the money you have cannot solve your problems, then you do what? You eat that money. That's exactly what I was just doing. Because I was like, I wanted to refund. They're like, they don't want the money. They don't want a refund unless it's double. And I'm like, I don't have the double. So what do I have to do? I got to invest this money. Until the day I'll have it double, that's when I'm going to pay. And that's exactly what I do. So fast forward, I get to town the next day. I get an office. And by the way, just to tell you where I got an office, there's an office at Ambank House, 12th floor. If you're a young entrepreneur today, you're looking for an office space, there's a very decent, a very nice, and a comfortable office space for you. The company is called Ascenders. I think they're on 12th floor of Ambank House. Those people serve me big time. So I walk there. I was actually referred by a friend. I get there. They tell me their office space has actually costed 15,000 by then. So they're like, we have a shared office space at 15,000. You have a dedicated desk, a shared reception, and, well, a boardroom. You can always do your work exactly how you want it. We don't care of what you do and how you do it, right? As long as you don't break the law. I was like, so be it. So I take this money, 64,000. I pay for the office. In fact, they didn't even charge me any other costing. I only paid 15,000, the rent, and 5,000 for the legal fee, whatever thing they called it, the legal charges. So I pay exactly that, right? Immediately I paid for the rent, I signed the papers, and then I rushed to downtown. I get a big screen for myself, a big monitor for myself, and, these, the CPU and all the, everything, all the accessories needed for a computer. And before you know it, I had a balance of 15,000, no, I had a balance of 5,000. After the whole transaction. So now we're here. Remember, me having 64,000 was a problem half solved as far as the client is concerned, right? Because, it was easier convincing the client that, I have this amount of money, please, I'm going to pay the balance in installments. But now at this moment, I don't have the money. I don't have the 64,000. I'm only left with 5,000. The package has not been delivered. I'm not communicating with the client, and the client is not communicating to me. So I definitely knew that something was boiling at this point, So, well, I opened the office, things were running, and this 5,000 that I was left with actually is what I was using as my daily transport from home to the office. And listen, I have an office. I don't have any clients. I don't have any employees. I don't have nothing. I have no business to transact, but I got an office. Every single day I wake up, I put on my decent suit or other clothes I have to wear or other any clothes I have to wear, go to the office, and then sit on my desktop and watch YouTube videos. Well, I definitely had nothing to do in the office, so there was nothing much to be handled in the office. I remember I started going to the office on a Monday, and then Tuesday, and then on Wednesday. On a Thursday morning, this one client calls me. And till to date, I always say this client was God sent. Because remember, for the past couple of months, I had not been in business. I had not transacted anything. I had not done any business at all, right? Because I had abandoned everything, my company, my employees, my team, and everything. I had literally abandoned everything. But this one fine morning, the client calls. And is like, I've been given your number by a friend of mine, and I have this work to be done in Jericho. There's an estate called Jericho in Nairobi. I need you do in Jericho. And I'm like, oh, bring it on. And then he asks me to visit him, and of course I do the visit, we have the discussion, I do the quotation, and the quotation came to around 350,000. That was God. Because I remember, immediately we did the quotation, the client insisted, and the word is to be straight, he insisted to visit my office. He was like, I really want to see your office before I can pay you this amount of money, right? And this is barely 3 days after I set up the office, right? So again, I can say it was God, because that coincidence of, using someone's money to set up an office, and then the first client that you get giving you good money, around 300,000, and he's insisting to have a look at your office before he can trust you with the money, that was a serious coincidence. So, well, the office served me at that time, and I always say it's God that actually communicated to me to have the office. So we go to the office, we talk about everything, we sign the contract, and the client was good. He makes the payment. In fact, out of the 350,000, the client makes 300,000, a payment of around 300,000. The balance was just like barely 50,000. Which, at this point, if you asked any sober entrepreneur or anyone who is in such a mess, they will always tell you the very first thing you need to do is take the 300,000 and clear the debt that you actually have. That's what 90% of people would do. But for me, I looked at myself and I was like, well, I got a client that is already disappointed. This client is already disappointed. He's not even listening to me. He's not even talking to me at all. And then there is this new client that is coming on board. This is a client that doesn't know anything, doesn't know that I'm in any mess or any fight with another client. So should I take the money from an innocent client and pay off the debt of a client that is already in a mess? Or I should just focus on this project and do it exactly how it's supposed to be done? And that's exactly what I do. I'm like, no, I can't risk the project. So I'm like, I pump like the whole money into the new project. I'm like, let me do it. Let me struggle with that as it comes. I'm going to sort it out as time goes by. So again, I don't pay the project. And this is something I feel you also really need to understand. That sometimes when you're in business and you're having these clients, the project is stalled, there are delays, maybe you've wasted the money and things are not moving on so well. And then, of course, the client is already pissed off, frustrated, and doesn't want to listen to you. Maybe you've already been sued, or maybe you've been arrested by the client. And then there is another innocent client that comes on board. Client who doesn't know you're having fights. Client that needs his work to be done. The client decides to actually pay you full money or any other amount. Please, do not use that money to take care of the delays. Do not use that money from the new client to sort out your messes. Because listen, if you do that, you're going to have piled projects that are piled stalled projects. I think I'm making sense. I hope I'm making sense. Because if one project is stalled and then you get a new project, you take that money to sort out this mess. That means the new project is going to be in a mess as well, right? And now what you're going to do is you're going to use that one project, that money, to clear this mess. And that means that new project is going to stall. That means you have to wait for the third project to come and finance the stalled project. So you'll be having a chain of incomplete projects, a chain of disappointed clients, a chain of frustrated clients, a chain of enemies, because if you don't deliver to a client, they're definitely going to be your enemies, right? So that said, I'm not doing that. I'm not using money from the new project that I actually landed to clear this mess. So I'm like, this is going to wait. I'm going to raise this money in bits until the day I'm going to, manage, or rather I'm going to raise the total amount and just pay it off. Though at this point, I was already smelling danger. I know, I was like, this guy is silent. Something is actually cooking. So fast forward, I organize everything. I organize everything to be done. The work actually starts to the new site, which is absolutely okay. I have these technicians working. I have everything rolling. The office is actually operational now. I wake up every single morning going into an office knowing there's something I'm going to do, right? So, well, things roll for like a week or 2 weeks. Yeah, exactly, 2 weeks. So 2 weeks later, I take my phone and dial this guy's number, the client's number, the Mombasa client's number. And I'm like, hey, I really feel for you. You said I can't pay the money in installments, or rather I can't give you half of the money, you just need the full amount. But honestly speaking, looking at myself, I won't be able to raise that amount in full. Yeah. So the only thing you can do at this moment, the only way we have, the only window we have here is that I have to pay this money in installments. So again, as I said, the guy was a good guy. That one, I can confirm to you, he was a perfect guy. So he listens to me and he understands my position and he's like, hey, Shamma, I think I get your point. So what you gotta do right now is, I'm going to give you the chance to pay this money in installments. Remember, we're talking of around 170,000 in total, because I'm supposed to pay the money in full, double the amount, actually, the amount I was paid. So it's like, I'm going to give you a chance to pay this money in installments, but in one condition, that you're giving me 2 installments. Give me half the money, and then 2 weeks later, you give me half of the money. At this point, half of the money is around 85,000, right? It's a lot of money already. And I don't have the money because I decided I'm not compromising a new project because of for the stalled project. So I'm like, I don't have that money. So at this point, I tell him, hey, please, I'm not ready to raise 50% of whatever it is I'm supposed to pay. What we can do is divide the money in, I think, 4 installments, and I'm going to pay it in bits. 4 installments, taking 170,000 divided by 4, it was coming to around 45,000 for the 4 installments. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If you're paying this in 4 installments, the first installment must be today. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. I don't have the money. You refused to take the cash, so I had to send it back to my brother. Of course, I wouldn't tell him I used the money to open an office, but I was like, you refused to take the money, so I sent it back. So I have to ask for it. But at the moment as we are speaking, I can get you some 10,000 so that you see that I'm serious and I'm not joking around with you. So for the very first time, the guy becomes flexible and he's like, send me that 10,000 right now. And I was in the office. I had the 10,000 in my M-Pesa. I take 10,000 and send him to his M-Pesa like right away. And that one was, that specific transaction is what actually saved me in the whole story. So listen, this is another lesson. Anytime you're having a transaction with your client, anytime you're in business, and maybe you're paid a specific amount of money, and this amount of money that you're paid, you're supposed maybe to deliver a product or a service. Always make sure that you are, and maybe you are not able to deliver the product and the service on time. Always make sure that you are on the civil side of the case and not on the criminal side of the case. So here's the difference. If a client pays you money to deliver a service, for my case, and you don't deliver the service completely, that is a criminal case. And in most cases, when you're arrested, you're going to be charged with obtaining money through false pretense. I mean, you took the money, you didn't deliver nothing, right? And then there is the other side, that now you're paid the money, you're supposed to deliver the service, and then maybe you start the execution. Maybe if you're a contractor, you have to visit site. You're paid the money, and then you show up at the site, you do a few activities here and there. With that, you are on the civil side of the case. So listen to my case. For my case, the fact that the guy accepted to receive 10,000 from me, and then we had the entire conversation on WhatsApp on how we agreed on, the amount of money that is supposed to be paid, and that we are going to pay it in 4 installments. That was it was actually changing my case from, converting my case from a criminal case to a civil case. Why? Because we already struck a deal. We had an agreement with the client that I'm going to pay the amount in installments. All right? And in fact, I had the first transaction done. Right? So I was just saying, this is a lesson. Anytime you get money from the client to do something, if you're very certain that you're not going to deliver, just make sure you show up. Just make sure you start execution of the service. You start working on whatever it is you're working on. Because with that, it won't be obtaining money through false pretense, but it will actually be not completing a project. For my case, if you have money from someone, maybe you borrowed money from someone, from a bank, not even a bank, well, casual borrowing from a friend, or a client has paid you money, and you are actually not able to return the money in full, just make sure you do a transaction, or 10% of the amount, or even less. If someone give you 100,000, just make sure you send them back like 5,000 or even 10,000. It's gonna save you big time. The day the person will decide to sue you, or rather get you arrested, it will not be a criminal case. It will be a civil case, because you actually were in the plan of paying that money back. So I send him the money, 10,000, and I'm like, yes, because that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to change the case from a criminal case to a civil case. So from there, of course, I go silent. I didn't have the money to do that project, to refund him, of course. I only had this 10,000 because I knew the 10,000 is going to save me big time. It's going to change everything in the story, which it actually did. So at this point, well, I'm not communicating to him. He's actually not calling me as well. He stopped calling me, sending me messages, or doing anything. He was just silent, waiting for me to do whatever it is I feel like. But again, in the process, I knew that something was cooking. That is something that was right at the back of my mind. So this fine morning, I wake up in my house, and I'm like, I need to go to work. So I wake up in the morning, I put on my khaki trouser, long socks, a long-sleeved shirt, my boots. I had these gray boots, big ones. So I put on the boots, and then something just tells me, well, I should put on a sweater. So for the very first time, I feel like I really need a sweater. I was looking funny, but looking out the window, it was also a bit chilly. So I had reasons of putting on a sweater that day, even though I don't do sweaters at all, right? So it was an exceptional day. And as you're going to see later in the story, you're going to understand that it was God talking to me. Actually, God was preparing me for something, because there was something big that was coming on that particular day. So I leave the house, I go to office, and then at around 10 in the morning, we were just in the office. I was with my colleagues in the office, because remember, this was a co-shared space. It's one office, but there were like around 4 different desks. So there were other people, doing their own errands. I think that we had 2 lawyers, and we had one tours and travel company. So we were like 4 of us in the room. So this fine morning, I was just doing my stuff on the computer. I see these 2 guys walking in, and they are very rude. They don't even knock the door. They just bang into the office. The first one was a bit shorter and, casually dressed. The other one was on blue, from head to toe, blue. And I was like, yo, it's a Monday morning. What exactly, what do you have to do with blue, like from top to bottom? Looking at him straight in the eye, I noticed this guy is a police officer, right? And this police officer is not even willing to listen to anything from me. In fact, the kind of eyes he's giving me is different, right? You can imagine at that point. So, well, fast forward, the guy points at me. At first, I didn't even know what was happening, because I said, this is someone I met a couple of years ago. We are never friends. He didn't have a profile picture on WhatsApp, so I had not actually known who exactly he was in person. Right? I had not even, we had not interacted much, so I didn't know him. So when they walked in, I was like, well, it's none of my business. I don't know the guy. I don't know the police, so maybe they're doing their own stuffs. Until when the guy turned to me and was like, he's the one. I was like, okay, who are you? And he introduces himself. He's like, yo, I sent you this money, all that whole story. I'm like, it's fine. So the police officer does what every police officer does, grabbing me from the waist, and he's like, you know what, we got to go. So he handcuffs me, and then we walk off the office. And this is our new office. I was just barely 2 weeks in the office. I think 2 or 3 weeks, 2 weeks in the office. So everyone is looking at me like, oh, okay, you are a con man. Well, but of course, that's done and said. We roll down, we walk all the way. If you know Ambank House in town, it's just somewhere close to Central Police Station. So we just have to walk. We walk to Central Police Station. And then now I'm put down to, do my statement. And a very important thing to note at this point is that I didn't even do the statement. In fact, the officer did the statement on my behalf. Am I making sense? The guy had paid the police officer. I don't know, maybe, I'm just trying to imagine, maybe he had paid the police officer. So the officers were very rude. They were very sarcastic. They were not even ready to listen to me at any point. So I didn't write any statement. the police officer wrote the statement on my behalf, because he had been told, a lot of stuff about me. He had been told everything about, the whole process. So he wrote what he felt was right according to him, all right? And listen, at that point, even before I proceed with the story, I just came to realize that that's how most people rot in jail, right? That's how most people get themselves in jail without, having the chance to express themselves. Because if myself, I was not given the chance to write my statement, to express myself and explain what had happened, then I'm just trying to imagine to 1,000 other people who go through the same process. The statements are written on their behalf, and then they end up in custody. They end up in prisons for no apparent reason. So I think, Kenyan police, I think we also need to change on that a little bit. But fast forward, we do the whole process, and the guy is like, he needs full amount of money. No stories, no nothing, right? It's like, he needs the amount to be paid the same day. Well, both of us know that at this point, I don't have the money. And I'm not even willing to pay it because I don't have it. If I had the money in full, I would have just paid, but I didn't have the money. So what happened? I had to spend my first day in a police cell. The first day spent in a police cell, I didn't have money for my cash bail. I didn't have money for, to pay the client, to refund the client for that matter. So I was like, the only thing I can do at the moment is go in. So I spent in the police custody the first day. And by the way, at the police custody, there was this one police officer that was nice to me. I talked to him and I was like, I'm a business person. Staying away from my phones for 24 hours is going to mess me up. So I'm just requesting kindly if you can give me my phone. And he actually did that. And, thanks to the guy. So he gave me my phone. I had my phone all through. I was still talking to my clients. And I remember there's, the client that I was currently working on, the client that paid me 300,000. It was really funny because I was talking to him as if, I'm just out and I was organizing everything. Everything was moving. To him, he knew I'm a free man. He didn't know I was speaking when I was actually behind bars, right? But, that was nice. We had the conversation. We talked and everything was just moving on smoothly at this point as far as the work was concerned. My wife comes in. Of course, the next day now, my wife comes in and is like, how did you get here? And I'm like, of course, you know the whole story. The guy did that thing. Funny enough, I had not even called her the whole day when, the police came and we had all these tussles. And actually, when I was even spending I was spending a night in a police cell, she didn't even know. I called her the next day. So, she goes to the OCS office, talks to the OCS and, requests for more time. And like, we can raise this amount of money in a couple of days, maybe, a week or so. So please give us the duration, like about 1 week, so that we can go out and get the money. And the OCS at Central Police Station, good one. He's a nice guy. So he's like, the only way I can help you guys, the only way I can assist you guys is if you can raise a cash bill of 10,000 shilling, 10,000 Kenyan shilling, I secure your release under the conditions of a cash bail, and then you get like around 3, 4, 5, up to 7 days to raise that amount of money. And we are like, perfect, that's exactly what we wanted anyway. So at that moment, of course, we get the money. I send my wife to my office to get me a checkbook. She comes with the checkbook. I sign the check. I sign the check, I address the check to her account. We had the same bank. So she goes to the bank and then the check matures like almost immediately, withdraws the money and comes back to Central Police Station with the money, 10,000 in cash. So we pay the cash bail. And then we are like, we are free to go. But there was a problem. The officer that was handling my case was not around that specific day. And I'm told in a way, I think he has to be around to understand how everything has gone and maybe sign some documents for my release. So again, I had to spend a night in custody that day. But, this time round, I'm pretty sure that I'm leaving. And there's always that feeling when you're in custody and, you're leaving the next morning. There are guys who are just coming in right now and you're like, you're still here for a week? I'm leaving tomorrow. I mean, that feeling, it's always a good feeling. And I just remember that feeling. So the next day comes, the officer shows up and, we clear everything and I'm released from custody, actually. So at that point, we had like 7 days to raise the amount. Remember, the amount is an upwards of 180,000 at this point. So, I called my brother. And I'm like, hey bro, I've been arrested, I'm out on a cash bail, and we need to raise this amount of money, and you caused the mess, it's your fault and everything, so you really need to help me raise this amount of money. And funny enough, my brother asks me on phone, and he's like, are you sure you've been arrested? Or it's a prank? I'm like, bro, you are the one who caused this mess. We are here because of you. If I had the direct link, maybe at this moment, we'd be done with the deal, right? If you refunded the money on time, we'd not be here. And then you're asking me if it's a prank, if I've been arrested in real sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? So fast forward, we had the conversation, and I remember he sent, after a lengthy conversation, by the way, I remember he sent me an additional 20,000, right? But of course, there are so many people that were involved. I got some money from, my savings, around 30,000. I had friends sending me the money. My mom sent me some money. My siblings, my sisters sent me some money. Actually, my wife also got money from other sources. I think he called her dad and her mommy or anything. So we had to raise this amount. But again, it was in full amount. We didn't raise the 180,000 that was needed, but we managed to raise a total of 90,000 Kenyan shillings. And that happened in a record 3 days. So at this point, we go back to Central Police. And, we talked to the OCS, and we're like, we managed to raise 90,000, which is more than the amount of money that we were actually given. All right? And at this point, again, thanks to the OCS gave us an advice. And it's like, hey, if you are paid 85,000 shilling, and that's what you've been sued for, then the only amount you're supposed to refund back is that same 85,000 shilling, right? These other double or whatever triple the amount that you actually need, that is your local arrangement. But according to the law, if you are paid 85,000 shilling, that's exact amount that you are supposed to refund back. And I was like, say what? Are you serious about it? I was like, yeah, we got the money. So we paid the money. And then I called the guy because he had already traveled back to Mombasa. So I call him and I'm like, I've already paid 90,000. And I think that is the amount of money that you sent. It's actually more than the amount of money that you sent me, right? So if I have to pay anything extra, I think you have to wait. And you have to wait for nothing less than 6 months because I don't have that money, right? But again, the law being the law, I mean, I wouldn't pay extra. He only sent me 85,000, and that's the same amount that I was actually supposed to send back. So I don't know what happened with his client, because I believe that is the same thing, the same script that he gave his client, because he had actually been sued in Mombasa. So I'm trying to believe that is the same script, and then the whole mess was just solved, peacefully and decently, right? So that was how I got myself. That is how I got myself in a police custody, just because of a business deal, all right? There are dozens of lessons that you can actually learn through this, but the moral of the story is, family is a no-go zone as far as business is concerned. Friendship is a no-go zone as far as business is concerned. But if you must transact with a friend, if you must transact with family, have it written down on paper. Because for me, I think I learned the lesson the hard way. You understand? And then the second most important lesson is that anytime you're transacting business, anytime you're doing your business with your client or anyone or a subcontractor or another contractor or whatever person, always make sure that you're on the civil side of the law. And I said, the difference between the civil case, between a civil case and a criminal case is that in business context, is that a criminal case, you're given money to do something, or rather to offer a service, and then you don't offer the service at all. That's a criminal case. And if you're arrested, you're going to be charged by obtaining money through false pretense, all right? The civil case, on the other side, is you're given money to offer specific service, and then you start the execution, but you don't complete the work. That's a civil case. Or alternatively, you're given money to do a project, or rather some work, and then in the process of execution, you feel like you can't do it, and then you don't do it at all. You don't even start the work. And then later on, you strike a deal with the client to pay them in installment. And maybe you just do the first installment. The first installment will automatically change the case from a criminal case to a civil case. So for a criminal case, you'll be charged by obtaining money through false pretense. You are a criminal, you've stolen from someone. That is more dangerous. That is more dangerous in a Kenyan law. For a civil case, you're not talking about theft. You're talking about incomplete work or incomplete repayment. So always make sure you are on the civil side of the case, because that is what actually saved my ass in the whole situation. That's what saved my whole situation, because again, if you're on the criminal side of the case, you're always going to be harassed. No one is going to listen to you. You're going to be handled as a criminal. All right? So I think that was it. So think about it. In business, always know. The third lesson I was forgetting about: try as much as you can to do away with intermediaries, brokers, intermediaries, a guy who knows a guy. Because the guy who knows a guy, the guy he knows actually also knows a guy. And in the entire chain, everyone wants to make money. In the entire chain, everyone is running away from problem. Right now, I was in custody and not my brother. Remember? All right? The client had sued the contractor and not me. So the contractor had cushioned me from the mess. Myself, I had cushioned my brother from the entire mess, because the subcontractor doesn't know my brother at any point of the story. All right? So always try to have direct link to the suppliers. You want your phone fixed, get to the direct supplier. You want to buy something, go to the supplier directly. You want any service, always be on the safer side of it, to just be on the not to disappoint your client because of an intermediary, or rather a broker or anyone that is coming between you and your suppliers. So that was our story, and as I said, we get to learn through the stories we make. That was my experience. That's how I got myself in custody. And maybe there is someone else who is in the same position. Maybe, listen, maybe you have this project that you are doing, you are the contractor, and then maybe, for instance, the painting job, whoever painted this room, the hall, maybe you've been contracted by Verona Hotel, or rather by Spamol, to paint the rooms. And then you're like, you don't do the work, you're just a contractor. So you have to subcontract somebody else to do the work. Always make sure you know the kind of people you are working with. All right? Always make sure you know you work with people you can trust. And if you must work with them, please always put it down on paper. All right? Always put it down on paper. That is the moral of the story. But these are the kind of stories you're going to make about our business experiences, about our experiences when you're transacting businesses, our failures, our wins, how we got ourselves into messes and how we walk out of the messes. Those are the stories you're going to make from now, henceforth, and they're going to be more interesting as time goes by. So make sure you take your time to check out our YouTube channel, The Business Hub Television. Our logo, it's over there on the screen. So check out on YouTube, check out that logo. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell, so that when you upload the next video, you will be notified. You will see it on the notification bar, right? You can as well check out my account on TikTok at Shamma Juniour, on Facebook, on X. Just follow if you like. Always leave us a comment as far as these videos are concerned. If you feel like the video, or rather my story, is hitting you differently, or is making you relate to a story that, an experience you've had before, let us know in the comment section. Also tell us what you need to do better, or rather what we need to do differently from what we have actually done today. Thank you.